You have to be into rubbish video games to watch them. But anyway. Right, okay, so who are the English? Now, as I said on the trailer, this is a controversial subject, and really it's at the bottom of nearly everything we do in this research. Because what seems to have happened, to give a little bit of background, if you get history books, particularly before about 1680, and definitely for about 1714 when the Hanoverians come in, before 1714, you will see completely different history portrayed in the history books. Like, just ordered Enderby's Cambria Triumphants, which does the whole British history back to Trojan wars and migrations, who the people were. It was all in there, okay? This was considered history. This is what you learned in school. It's what everyone knew. When Shakespeare wrote, was it Troilus and Cressida, his Shakespearean play, it's set in ancient Troy. Because everyone just assumed that's how it was. That's where he came from. What seems to have happened is from about 1714 onwards, when the Hanoverians were brought in, which in itself is a wonderful piece of Britain's hidden history to look into. A bit more recent than I usually cover. But if you look into it, depending on how you define it, the George who was brought in, his claim to the throne, he was about 32nd or even 57th in line to the throne. Didn't even speak English, came over, did the bare minimum, and went back again. So why they brought him in is a subject in itself, I can tell you. It's amazing. But anyway, by the end of the 18th century, of course, then you've got, first of all, American independence, turned on George III, and a revolution there. Then you got the French Revolution brewing, all the French aristocracy having their heads chopped off, and revolutionary fervour is definitely in the air. And the estimates at the time were the British public supported the French Revolution and the American Revolution, and really seemed a bit sick of their royal family. One of the reasons seemed to be that this royal family was Germanic. They were from Hanover. The first two, George I definitely didn't speak any English at all, unlike George II spoke hardly any. They just felt like a sort of a foreign rule put on the country, and they felt quite insecure. And who their backers were and why they were invited over to be the kings is, like I said, another story. But what seemed to be a conscious decision was made at that point to rewrite British history. And this is a lot what this whole project is about. We dance around it a lot, but this is the big subject. Obviously, if you watch Wilson and Blackett, they've been going on about this for, it's 40 years coming up now. I was looking, the book, Arthur, we'll see in a minute, King of Glamorgan and Gwent, which has a lot of British history. 1981, that was published. So it's almost 40 years coming up, okay? Now then, so we've got the situation where we want to get rid of this national feeling, this British identity, and this wanting to rise up, and replace it with a Germanic identity. So everything has to be written out. Everyone in England is Anglo-Saxon. You know, the rugby teams are called the Saxons and all this kind of stuff. And that's what you have to get to create this bond, this unity of a Germanic nation. But is it true? Does it really look, if you look at the history of it, where does this stand up? And we'll come at the end of it, what does even the word English mean? All right, so it's quite controversial to say the least. Okay, see some of the comments there. Right, so I'm going to start right down the bottom, and it's going to be maps and stuff. I did want to do some hand drawings. It was good fun live. But anyway, printer didn't work, so forget that. And who knows, probably gone wrong. Right, let's look first of all right down in the bottom corner, the bottom tip of Cornwall. Okay, so first of all, we have the area. Now, according to the Cornish traditions and their founding stories, and you'll see this in people like, I want to call him more often Griffith ap Arthur, not Geoffrey of Monmouth, all right? That's a name that's been stuck on later. The Welsh name, Griffith ap Arthur, cousin of Arthur, historian, originally writing as early, way back as far as the 6th century. Obviously, copies made later. Now, the story there was Cornish came as part of the Brutus migration round about 500 BC after the fall of Troy. Now, for those who are not familiar, Troy, if you read Wilson and Blackett's amazing work on this, and they're not the first to look at the dating of Troy. Sir Isaac Newton, back in the 17th century, was saying it's ludicrous, this idea of 1250 for Troy. Velikovsky, loads of historians looked at it since. And Wilson and Blackett, with a rare genius they have, finally pinned the dates round about 650, which ties in with the work of Melesigenes, Homer, and writing almost contemporary accounts and speaking to people who would have been there. So a few generations down, you got Aeneas, goes to set up the Etruscans, and then a couple of generations down, Brutus comes and picks up these apparently shattered tribes in Anatolia and takes them off to Britain, and that's the migration story where Brutus changes the name to Britain. All right, there's other versions, but I want to give people a general background in this video, okay? So Corineus was supposed to have been some sort of a magnificent warrior who's a close ally of Brutus. And Corineus, the story goes then, this is where fairy tale starts to get written over history and stuff, because Corineus, and I've got children's stories of Britain, and which I tell my children, and one of the first ones in there is how Corineus fought the giants, Magog and all this stuff. Well, it's probably more likely it's the Giantes. Giantes has just been mistranslated as giants. I know there's going to be comments on it. This doesn't say they weren't giants. It doesn't say that Corineus wasn't a giant. It doesn't say that giants never existed. I'm not even going down that road. The point was the people there were the Giantes. All right, so in comes Corineus, establishes Cornwall. Now, what I wanted to bring up on Devon and Cornwall, I think most people might be familiar with what I've just said, it's quite common knowledge, is we go all the way up to someone called Doniot, who died around about 875. Now, why is he... This is where it gets interesting. This is the twist, which I don't think many people are really aware of. And I've had to piece it together a little bit. When William the Conqueror came in to invade England in 1066, it's not often realised that almost half, if not half, of his army were actually Bretons. They weren't Normans. There's all sorts of ragtags of mercenaries and freebooters and people chancing their arm. So the biggest contingent might actually have been Breton. Now, after the battle of, battle or Hastings, whatever you want to refer it as, one of the first things that William the Conqueror did, and this is forgotten, he appointed Cadoc, C-A-D-O-C, see on the bottom of the screen there, Cadoc, as the first Earl of Cornwall. It's since been changed over time to Duchy of Cornwall, and we've got old Charlie is the current Duke of Cornwall, one of his titles. But Cadoc, and you can see it's a very British name, British Welsh style name, like Caradoc and all these people, Madoc. Cadoc was appointed by William the Conqueror. Now, Cadoc can trace his ancestry back to Doniot, who is said to be the last survivor of the ruling line of Bretons or Britons in Devon and Cornwall, known as Dumnonia. So what you have is a curious situation whereby an invasion has taken place by the Normans, but they've actually reappointed a Briton to be in charge of Britons in the place where his family comes from. So what's really happened there? Maybe it's a case of the royal family lost out to whatever reasons and ended up going to their kinfolk over in France, and then they've come back as part of William the Conqueror's invasion. And that is an invasion I want to look at more. If people got more information on that, the role of the Bretons, how much of it was actually Norman, how much was really an invasion, would be really interesting to look into. For a start, the invasion of, it wasn't even an invasion of Wales. They call it, the old saying is, the Normans conquered the English and married the Welsh. And you see, even that didn't start happening until 1091, which is, what's that, 25 years after the big battle. And you find there's Welsh forts and British forts all the way up to 1400s, independent of the Normans. So, again, another story exaggerated. All right, so there's a little... the Cornish people, you see, they it's there, the history's there. In the Guildhall is this statue of Cornelius, referred to as a giant, which really mixes the story up, because he's supposed to have fought against a giant, and they probably weren't giants, but there you go. Right, it's going to move slightly up the map now, and this is where I'm going to draw things. But if you can imagine, for those that know you know your British geography, you've got the bit sticking down the bottom corner, which is Devon and Cornwall. There will be maps on screen soon. Just above that, then, you've got this curious thing called Wessex, which is just assumed to mean West Saxons. And then, if you look at the writings of Bede, he sort of swaps the names back and forth, and this seems to be in the era when the confusion started. Because if you go further back, you find the Gewissi seem to exist well before the Saxons ever turned up. So the name Gewissi has become Wessex, and that becomes Wessex. I have to dig a little bit more into that, okay? What's curious to notice, I mentioned it on the screen there, the last ruler of Wessex, Gewissi, depending how you want to cut it, is said to be Caedwalla or Caedwalla, because it's clearly a British name. So the people running the Gewissi were not Saxons. And actually, if you look even closer, it probably comes from Caedwalla, which means battle leader. So it might not even be a name anyway. It's just a British term or Welsh term for a battle leader. So what I want to do, I brought this map up. It's an interesting one. This map records to be about 600 AD. And I researched this map particularly, so I'm not staking my life on it or anything. This is the one you see on Wikipedia. You can have a look and look up the Gewissi. You will find this. I got the mice working this week. Excellent. So what's curious here, this is 600, so that's quite late. The West Saxon claims to Wessex go all the way back to 420, they say. They've got this crazy notion that from 420 AD, Germanic settlements supposed to start to appear at the head of the Thames. The mouse is gone again. And the head of the Thames is round about this area. So there's supposed to be Germanic settlers. This is 600, it's showing Gewissi, which is Gewissi, and as you can see, the G has vanished. Gewissi. Right, so who were the Gewissi? Now, there's different theories on this. One person, who I mentioned a lot, so don't just read Wilson and Blackett, alright, is Chris Barber. Hopefully you can see that on the screen. Chris Barber, this is one of his books. He's written many, and he writes a lot about the Gewissi, because he sees them very much as the ancient rivals of the British. Now, Chris Barber, he says that these are actually Irish who come across and well, not just settled there, they've kind of battled out the kingdom for themselves in this area. I tend to go with it's a different migration altogether, and it's not from Ireland, it's more ancient than that. And you can find references to the Gewissi going way, way, way back, pre-Roman times. So, not that contradicts what Chris Barber says, by the way. There is also a story of, I think it's Gwragedd Mawr, one of the early British kings, granting land to the Irish after the deluge, which is thought to be the time when Ceredigion, see this big gap you got missing here? This area got flooded, and you got the Lost Cantrev, the drowned area, and that could refer to this as well. So it's unclear the Gewissi are, but just by the fact of how far back they go, it would seem most unlikely that they're actually Saxons. And this map was curious to see that they've got them listed here quite separately to the West Saxons. And by the way, I would massively reduce the area the West Saxons are given on this map as well, because Devon and Cornwall, Dumnonia, goes way up. The Saxons might have had it for a short period, but it was British. A couple of thousand years, maybe a gap, and then when the Normans came in, as he showed, back to being British again. Same with Gewissi. And another curious one you'll see in a second is this idea of Mercians. Cornwall. It's picking half London and Surrey and all sorts of places. Just drop that in there, okay? So that's giving you an idea of the map. And as you can see, a big chunk of this didn't even exist in those days, because that's been land that's reclaimed through drainage programs and stuff like that. And the Mercians we're going to come on to. And the Northumbrians, I need to speed up. Right, so Surrey, one of the things that Wilson and Blackett talk about is this idea of the Eldsakians being the root of the name Surrey. And if you look at the old spellings of Surrey, you get Surrey, you even get Siri, like this. And I've got here one of the things I've been doing, by the way, slight delay on publishing of Trojan War book, the reprinting. One is it's hard to get hold of anybody because the lockdown means everyone's on furlough. But the other one is I've started doing an index, going all the way through, looking for every reference I can find in there, or not everyone, but a lot. Great exercise because it's packed with information. And I just want to lead something quickly from here. Let's give you an idea. Because it's this book, Trojan War, is misnamed because once again it's like 3 books glued together and it's got all about this. Right, one other thing I want to put here. So we got about the migrations and Diocletian and Dungi. Now then, the first thing of note is the name Surrey or Syria, because this name is still extant, it still exists, in Britain in the county of Surrey. This is a name which has long puzzled philologists, and one academic in recent times wrote a paper hypothesizing that as Surrey lies to the south of the River Thames, then there's an ancient, long-forgotten Norrie, as in north to go with south. And we skim through this. The Brutes of England references them. Now, this is the little bit reference why it's in this book as well, is because it ties in with the Odyssey, written around 650 BC by Melesigenes, alias Homer. So in this count, the voyages of Odysseus following the Trojan War, the hero has been away from home for 10 long years and presumed dead. They're going to try and get the rich estates of Odysseus. Now, when Odysseus returns home unrecognised, he is assisted in his plan to kill these gluttonous suitors by his farm bailiff Eumaeus. In conversation, Odysseus asks Eumaeus of his origins, and he is told, "You are asking about my early days. Let me give you the tale. There is an island called Syria, or Syria. You may have heard the name, out beyond Ortega, where the sun turns in his course." And that's the Odyssey, book 15, verse 403. So Wilson and Blackett explain this. So where the sun turns in his course implies the way in the far west from Greece, out beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which is the Gibraltar Straits. Ortygia is thought to have been the birthplace of the goddess Diana and of the god Apollo. And the Brutes, which is the English records, record the god of Albine of Britain as Apollon. Apollon, god of Britain. Ortygia is the name of a small island in Sicily in the Bay of Syracuse, where the fountains of Erythea rose, and once one of the 4 quarters of the ancient city, as in Virgil's Aeneid. So you go beyond Ortega, is far to the west, beyond Italy, okay? So in the Aeneid, around 50 BC, Virgil also names a Rutulian prince named Ortygius, who was killed by Aeneas. And this again indicates Ortygia as Italy, and beyond Ortygia, you go on to Greece. Anyway, so you can read more about that. But the point this is there, this reference to Syrians coming from Surrey, and ties in with the migrations, and also makes it very clear that these people are not Saxons. They're way, way, way more ancient. It would seem that these go all the way back to the first Albine migrations, about 1700 BC. So actually, if the English, these people in Surrey have been in Britain 1,000 years longer than, say, the Welsh have. So, it's an interesting point. Dorset I've mentioned in here. I was going to include some more stuff on this. We got members in the group. Dorset is ram-packed with ancient stone circles and mounds and all sorts. You've got the landing stone. This is where, for a small county, it's remarkable how much history is packed in there. You've got the stone where the original Albine landing is supposed to have occurred. Brutus Stone, there's so much there. I'm sorry to Dorset people, I haven't done it full justice. Perhaps we'll come back and I think we'll do another video on Dorset. But it's another little bit of the jigsaw pieces to squeeze in there. Now, this one. Mercia. A massive area. We are talking the whole chunk of the Midlands, okay? And that's a Welsh, North Wales, England border. I'll show you some of the maps. Is it on the next map? On here, for example, this map, I think is around, this is 800 AD. By this stage, Mercia is all of this. So I'll give you an idea. Hey, well done, me. There, look at this. Oh, I'm not on screen share. Sorry. Whoa, thank you. See, my producer doing a great job. Vigilant. Paying attention. Well done, Arnie. I think he's... There we go. Good work. Alright, so there's Mercia, okay? I'll do it again. It's got that massive area in the centre, Mercia. That sighing was not really Arnie. He's loving every second. What better way to spend your Sunday evening when you're 11 years old, eh? Doing a bit of history with Dad. Right, so Mercia is this enormous area here. I mean, this is, for a while, the dominant kingdom. And one of the things I want to point out here, and we'll see in a minute as well, in the east of Mercia, around here, and we've got Elmet and Leicestershire and places like that. When these borders change, I really want people to think more like, say, I don't know, a recent war, World War II. When the Germans rolled into France in 1939, 1940, they didn't slaughter every French person or drive them all out of the country. You know, some French went over and set up Vichy France and worked with them. Other people were supposed... The people were still French. They didn't suddenly become German. In the same way here, just because some of these territories are changing hands, like 1 minute the Saxons push, and the Mercians push, and then the Angles from Northumbria might push, or the British might push. The borders are moving. They're not constantly migrating the people around or slaughtering everybody. This is why, when you look at the modern DNA, look at it and everything, you see that hardly any, 30% is being generous of the English population is probably Saxon or Angle or Germanic. And that's generous. And then you throw in the populations of Wales, Scotland, and the total of Britain, I know, probably 20% maybe. So you get some strange things going on. So look, we got... Oh, I need to have a fan club now, is he? Yeah, thanks a lot. A lot of Powys went missing on that map. I do apologise to the people of Powys. I see what you mean. Yeah, the Mercians grabbed a chunk of Powys. A lot of fighting there between Wales and Mercia. One of the interesting things is who were the Mercians? And I am going to refer to this book, which I've got my own covers on it. There's those lovely black leather books. Arthur, the King of Glamorgan and Gwent. And I am going to read part of this because it's really well written, but just highlights. And I recommend this book for its 40 years anniversary, okay? What Wilson and Blackett have pointed out is that the story in the Mabinogi of... I'll get this slightly wrong, so I wrote it down to get it right this time. The bull chase, the boar chase, the chasing of this wild boar. What is that? It's just, people think it's just a fantasy story, but these stories have always got something behind them. And the reference here is that the boar would be the boar that the Vandals had on their shields or on their helmets. That was their emblem, or even on those poles, making a kind of banner. So this is the bull chase. So the idea is that the Vandals, we come on to their background in a second. I'll just do something on here. Yeah, no, I'll just do a little background here. So what we have is a situation, the Vandals were originally Aryans, so they were sort of white-skinned. But as their name suggests, they went around smashing places up. I think that's a little bit worse than they really were. They come down through Europe. They've ended up going down through Italy. They've then gone over to North Africa, where they've set up in the North Africa, Tunisia area, and they become seafaring people and develop a navy and dominate Western Mediterranean. This goes on for a long time until, I think his name, Boniface, the Roman general, is finally sent to dispatch them. And what they've done is they got caught in a bit of a outmaneuvered in a way, because their main army and their main navy was away sorting out some trouble on one of the islands in the Mediterranean. So while they were gone, the Romans came in and smashed up the people where they only had young boys and old men defending. So I'm just going to pick this up on page 220. Now, in Africa, the Vandals spared nobody and no thing. Their progress down through Gaul into Spain in 406 AD was repeated. And I'm reading this because it's got a bit more detail, okay? These Vandal peoples, the Astingi and Seringi, were allied to the Skiri and Alani, who the British had been fighting up in northern France. When they crossed the Rhine and followed the course of the river Mersel and river Ain, they sacked the cities of Reims, Amiens, Arras, Tournai, making their name a byword for destruction, and then going southward through Aquitaine and crossing to Spain in 409. Now, once arrived in Spain, the Vandals founded a kingdom under Gunderic, and where the Roman governor of Africa, Bonifacius, revolted, he recruited their help. Sorry, I got that wrong way around. He recruited the Vandals' help. In answer to this appeal, Genseric, the brother of Gunderic, moved over across the Straits of Gibraltar with 80,000 followers in 429. In 430, the Vandals attacked the city of Hippo, where the now reconciled Bonifacius and his army were annihilated in 431, and the city fell. At this time, St. Augustine of Hippo perished also in the siege of the city. The Vandal power in Africa grew rapidly, and they built a great fleet to pursue their ravages and still spared nothing and no one despite a treaty with Rome. A fleet was sent from Constantinople and another treaty signed, and on top of this the emperor's daughter Eudocia was betrothed to Genseric's son Heneric. So the Vandals got Valentinian's daughter and most of the Roman lands except Carthage. Now, as we've noted, Genseric tore up the treaty and took Carthage as his naval base in 439. So this gave him the platform for a systematic destruction and raiding. Now then, over in Africa, the Vandals were hated by other peoples, and they were in fact the only Aryan race in North Africa. Their power lasted, and this is the dates become important, until 548, following continued wars with the Eastern Empire from 533 to 548, when Belisarius defeated them and the Berber population as well revolted against them and basically kicked them out. So this white-skinned Aryan Caucasian race kicked out of North Africa, and then you read then in Spain, Justinian held the south coast, formerly held by the Vandals, and controlled both sides of the Straits of Gibraltar. The Visigoths were in Spain and the Franks were in France. So what they've done, they've gone further north. To cut a long story short, they've ended up in Ireland. This is where it ties in with Arthur's tales, because we're into his era now. So he has taken his army and fleet over to Ireland, and he's trying to pursue them to tie them down in a battle and destroy them. He's now been outmanoeuvred. As he's gone to Ireland, they've come the other way and they come into Wales. So if you read the story in the Mabinogi, you hear about the little piglets, and that is the lesser kings of the Vandals spreading out in their usual way, like almost like a Napoleonic thing, you know, with a corps, and each one's going around smashing up different parts, and the army's coming through, destroying Wales. So you've got the stories then of how this bull in the what's portrayed as a children's story, a bull, a big pig, is smashing up whole cities and areas. Well, of course he can't do that, but an army can, and these armies are rampaging through. Arthur's chasing. And then some of Arthur's younger generals are out pursuing. And this ties in with possibly the death of Naui, Arthur's son Naui, who we mentioned on last week's chat. It seems that he was ordered to scout and follow and watch, and he's got himself embroiled in a battle and got himself killed. So the Mercians finally get pursued out of Wales, and they end up in this sort of area here. So if you're from Liverpool, Cheshire, any of those areas, a good chance you might be a Vandal. How exciting is that? Might not have known that before. So we've got the Mercians are Vandals. How weird is that? And when you see them, people that area, blonde people, that kind of thing. Of course, more recent times you've got Irish inflections and Scottish inflections, whatever. But that's a good chance where your background is. I bet not a lot of people in that area know that. On this map, you can see The area taken is huge. Yeah, thank you, Robert Pierce. Oh, Legolas there. He's saying, yeah, if you look at the other histories, this Mercian kingdom just appeared out of nowhere. Who is it? And you can tell from the way Bede writes about them, they are not Angles or Saxons. They are clearly not related. There's no connection there. One of the things Bede complains about, he complains that the British have done a very poor job at converting the Mercians to Christianity, which is a ridiculous comment if you think about it. If they were the same people as the Angles or Saxons, then why are they going to do it? Because they're not. They're bitter war. Another big clue, if you look through the Welsh histories, and you go back to the treacherous Long Knives where they killed all the Welsh princes, the British would have no truck at all with Saxons after that. There was a bitter death hatred. They would not ally with them. Yet you see them allying with the Mercians, such as the King Penda. And the other thing, which I highly urge to do, I think I might even do a whole video just on the Mercians, because you can go through and you can see the whole list of their kings, the names, how the names tie in with Vandal names. You can trace it back to Roman history. It's another brilliant piece of research from Wilson and Blackett, and I urge people, you could buy this book, Arthur, King of Glamorgan and Gwent, just for that story alone, and I'll be doing videos on it. It's wonderful, very interesting, and extremely convincing, because he also gives the family trees of who the Mercians are in it. Right, so there we go. That's the Mercians, alright? Further north, I know we've got a lot of Scottish fans like Janet and that. Thank you, chipping in every week. At this stage, it is really confusing. A few words about Scotland, because you've got what's called the Scots, the Scotii. They're in Ireland. There's a few start to arrive in this part of Scotland. So you've got like the British here, Bernicia, you've got Northumberland, and the Picts have got a large chunk at this point. This is after Arthur's driven them back and reclaimed a lot of this land. So again, another confusing story. I mentioned this on here because you've got Northumberland, and also what's sad if you're British maybe, but the kingdom here of Cumbria has kind of vanished at this point, and that's become, there's a lot to take in. It might be a bit small on your screen. I'll try and zoom in. Can I zoom in? No, I can't. Go back one. What I want to point out here, we're now going back a little bit. I think this map is put together by E.M.B. Nicholson of the Bodleian Library. I think that's Oxford University, esteemed, and this is 1910. And the reason I put this on here is twofold. One, I wanted to point out that recently is 1910. They were still saying this was British here until 469 at least. This is the Leicestershire area. And that's where you've got King Clear, I think his name was. And they were fighting there and holding out to that territory. And again, it's important because a lot of assumptions are anything that's found in this area, anything at all, Sutton Hoo, Lexington Mounds, all that kind of stuff, automatically Saxon because they'd already taken this area and done this bizarre push. Seems like the only invasion in history when instead of just taking the country like you normally would, you're actually, wiping out all the people or something. It just doesn't fit with what normally happens. And the other one I want to put on here is Elmet. And I got a lot more to say about Elmet because the Elmet kings, and thank you for people getting in touch with me, think that good to see it mentioned, evidence them going to at least 619 AD. And I think, again, that's going to be another separate piece, because the Kingdom of Elmet was very interesting. It's clearly British linked, or British in some way, but also clearly independent. Another type of people. So quick, little bit of a recap here. So far, we've got Devon and Cornwall, Dumnonia. They've got their own origin history. Goes all the way back to possibly 1500 BC. Oh, and my mouse. Come on, mouse. Why do you disappear like this? There we go. And then you got the Gwisi, which I would say is a bigger area, was shown on an earlier map, which then somehow gets changed to Wessex. I don't know. That's the Gwisi. And they could be an early migration or even Irish, depending on your point of view. So the West Saxons will actually be this bit. And of course the question comes in, Alfred the Great, the famous Alfred the Great, who was he? Was he actually British? Oh, excuse me. Oh, dear. Wouldn't that be great? Guess there's not much evidence of Alfred, apart from what he wrote himself, supposedly, and the fact he brought in Bishop Asser, who was from Wales. It's like a joke going into the pub, because he brought in a Scotsman, a Welshman, and an Irishman to teach his people how to read and stuff. And Asser, Bishop Asser's the famous one, and I've forgotten his Welsh name. It's not Asser, his Welsh name, of course. Cadman, I think it is, something like that. I need to check that. And they wrote the histories. And we'll come on to a minute, what exactly is the language of English we're talking about? Because Bede also seemed to use some Welsh scribes as well. And if there's no written English before then, Bede's supposed to write the first document, so is he inventing a whole written language? Is he transposing? Some people say he wrote in Latin, and then he got changed into some sort of Anglo-Saxon, which doesn't really mean anything. Was it Anglo or Saxon? Anyway, later. Confusing. All right, so a little bit about the north. Yes, I have written a bit more about the north, because here's Cumbria. The clue is in the name. Wales is Cymru. This is Cumbria. And there's Elmet. You see at this point, I think this is up to 650. Elmet's in a really powerful strategic position. It's where the roads join, and it's the connection between the British, and which would be Angles by now around here, probably. But that seems to be exaggerated. I mean, look at it. We're talking about boatloads coming over, as opposed to a population of millions. So how much influence did they really have? All right, this is the question we're getting to. So here's Cumbria. And again, you can find all this Wikipedia. Look up Elmet. And I got this here. Hen Ogleth, the Old North. Wonderful. And this is called the Gododdin, as in the poem. But I think that's a confusion. The Gododdin is... it means the Northerners, but I don't think this is what it refers to. But anyway, and you can see the Picts up here above the Antonine Wall. And a quick trivia question for you. Who built Hadrian's Wall? And it's not the joke, like, where's Hadrian's Wall around Hadrian's Garden? It's not one of them, right? It's called Hadrian's Wall. Was he actually the emperor when it was built? And I'll give you a clue. No, he wasn't. It's not built by Hadrian, okay? Hadrian built some palisades and a few towers and not the wall, all right? Anyway, getting towards the end now. Like, if your Arnie's going to... Had enough? No, he's enjoying it, he says. Oh, good boy.
Yeah.
And he's loving the fact he's getting more comments than I am. Right, Cumbria. So there we are. Now, the other one then is Iceni and Brigantes. Now, I mention these because these are massive, powerful peoples. They're always referred to as tribes. I prefer kingdoms, all right? I don't see why we have Saxon kingdoms and British tribes. It doesn't make any sense. They call themselves kings. They had established borders. They've been there for hundreds of years, if not 1,000 years. They call themselves kings. Let's call them kingdoms. Is that all right with everyone? We call them kings, okay? Tribes is a kind of... the semantics are important. It's a kind of implied barbarism, which is another thing introduced at the beginning when I mentioned the thing about the whole idea of a Germanic past being invented or pushed from about 1800 onwards. People like Bishop Stubbs and people whose books I got over there, like Edwin Guest. These kind of, they're religious maniacs, really. And they were more interested in pushing the idea of the British going back to Noah through some sort of Aryan hereditary. I mean, honestly, I got Celtica there. Where's it? Can you pass that one, Arnie? Origin is Celtica. That's it. Yeah, either one. There's 2 volumes. It's a massive thing. Thank you very much. Take my temporary cover off so you can see. This book cost me a blinking fortune, this did. It's a very old copy of the Origines Celtica. And you want to read the kind of stuff in here. You can see all my references. I don't know if you can see. You can't really see them off the camera. Why am I off the camera? Oh, there we are. Anyway, all these little references all the way through it. Fascinating. You want to see the stories in here about migrations and how the British got here and the barbarism and the biblical roots. When people say Wilson and Blackett come up with some daft stuff or it's not properly researched, read the mainstream. Get the old books out. Read what these lunatics are writing. It's bonkers. It's like this idea of sort of super race, you know? It's racist. It's to do with trying to make everything tie in with the dating of the Bible. They've got weird ideas. And that's now our mainstream history. If anyone, an academic or something from 1600s or 1700s saw this, he'd be like, what? Where's this come from? And there's no references to where it comes from. He doesn't suddenly say, as shown in blah, 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 or something like that. For an academic tome, this, because he even talks about the chapter 1, right? A little bit of a rant here. Chapter 1.1, what are you laughing at? Arnie present, it's ranting time. Thanks, Arnie. I'm getting sledged by the producer. That's not right. He even talks about the Kimmeroi and the Cimbri. Chapter 1, page 1. This is a hit piece, this book. First thing he does is write about the Kimmeroi and the Cimbri and tries to shatter this view of the history, and he makes out some land migration and whatever. Try and read it. I don't know if you can get a copy, free PDF or something. I paid a load of money for this back in Hayes bookshops. Back in the day, I didn't know any better. But yeah, I'm glad I got a copy. I read it all. Yeah. Glad I did. Glad I'm going to read it again. You know, one of those kind of books. All right, so here we go. So by 800, we're looking at this picture. Seems more like it to me. The big change I would make is Wessex actually West Saxons, or is it more likely to be the Gwisi and also West Wales here? If we move the border up to here, Dumnonia, we have Devon and Cornwall, and fair play to Cornwall, and this is the confusion of Cairnú comes in. So you've got Cairnú there, and you've got Cairnú in South Wales between Glamorgan and Gwent. That's really leave that for now. The point is, it seems very accepted now and established that Cornwall and probably most of Devon never conquered by the Romans, and that's getting acceptance, and this gives me hope. Because if that's getting more acceptance, then maybe people start to get more acceptance to the idea that actually Wales wasn't ever really conquered. Or, well, if they're there at all, maybe for a few years, the Romans. And then you get to the north of England. Was that ever taken? And then you start going to Midlands, and you start putting this whole myth apart. And one thing I did find out, being up on those mountains towards the Brecon Beacons last night, the vastness of it, the vastness, and where the hilltops are. And if you're a Roman army, and you got, what's a legion? 4,800 plus auxiliaries. Have 10,000 men. Have 20,000. Fill your boots. If I'm up there with an army in Wales and you're trying to chase me around in little skirts and sandals, you're never going to get me, because you'll never tie me down in a big battle. You take out some farmsteads, good luck to you. I moved the stock ages ago. It's the perfect defensive terrain. This is why no one's ever taken it. It's perfect. You can be on a mountain, you can see 30, 40 miles all around you. You can see an army coming towards you 2-3 days before they get there. And you decide to either fight or leave. You're in control. Right, you just deal with the comments then, aren't you? Carry on. Right, so I'll close this up now. There are other parts of England. Oh yeah, the Iceni, I forgot this. The Iceni, another massively powerful, they call them a tribe, I prefer a kingdom, who revolted against the Romans. And remember, they were never conquered by the Romans either. They came to an agreement, a trading relationship, and when the king died, he thought he would secure his kingdom by leaving it in some sort of joint ownership agreement with his wife, Boudica, and the Roman, which one was it? Anyway, one of the Romans. And of course, the Romans wanted the whole lot, and that's when they came in and defiled her, and all those horrible things happened. And then the whole war kicked off. So this is where the situation, that's well into what's supposed to be Roman Britain. And the records clearly say it wasn't Roman Britain. Anyway, I'm ranting, I'm diverging. The name English, the reason the Iceni are so important, and I have done stuff on this before, and Alan Wilson writes about this a lot. The Iceni were actually Isinglass is the full name. And if you say Isinglass, you're close to getting English. And the point is this. If you look at the records, even of the Anglo-Saxon Chronicles, the Brutes of England, the works of Bede, or the Saxon English Chronicles, they talk about fairly small numbers coming over by boat and fighting. And one of the things I wanted to point out is curious that they're down on the south coast as well, when they're supposed to be the coast guards of the northern shore. The reason is Vortigern, who's Gwyrderen, or Treherne is his proper Welsh name, Vortigern, brought them in to form a guard against the British kings in Brittany, in northern France, coming across and joining it. So not only have you got the British mainland main forces, you've also got the ones in France. And one thing I do need to say on that, which I almost forgot, was when this Brutus migration came over, ours was pointed out by Patricia, I think. Switch screen, Ross. Thank you. Go back to me a second, shall we? It seems to be in a situation where Brutus took, and this is where, again, controversial area, the 10 tribes of Israel, possibly the 2 tribes of Judea as well, took the west and went over to Cymru in the west of Britain, and Brutus himself and the Trojan survivors went to England, and this is why you got Troy Noventis, or New Troy, which became London. It was already London. King Lud had set this up eons before, but they kept trying to push this name of New Troy because they were Trojans. The name could never caught on, and you can go why. One of the ones I like, E.O. Gordon, in his book published in 1914, Prehistoric London, you see Llindane comes from Sacred Lake, and there's a large lake at the north of London. You know, pays your money, takes your choice. You can see Ludgate, where King Lud was. So what we have is the English being Trojans. So you've got Trojans, Syrians. Oh, I missed one out. Just above the Gwisi, you've got a county called Somerset. And I say it like that because it's where the cider apples grow. Somerset. And that is said to be from the term summer. S-U-M-E-R, Sumer. As in the ancient country next to Syria. And that's where the Sumerians. So you've got the Sumerians in Somerset, Syrians in Syria. And then we're talking about Brutus migration in Dumnonia, the Gwisi, who could be from Ireland, the Mercians, who were Vandals. Moving further up, you've got the British in Cumbria, or Cymru if you like, in Cumbria. God, we're working our way around all these different people, you see. It gets so interesting, doesn't it? Then on the other side, across the top, you've got the powerful people, the Brigantes, so Yorkshire and further north. And then you've got, beg your pardon, I don't want to miss anybody out and cause unwanted offence. Then we've got Elmet and the people there, British, still there, I would argue. So they're not Saxons either. The Mercians, we've done those. So what we're really looking at is Kent, Sussex. And then there's one more little twist in the tail there as well, because even down south-east corner, right back to Roman era, I hate that term, but there we go. Going right back to sort of 0 and earlier, it seems clear that people like the Belgae, B-E-L-G-A-E, the Belgae, who were continental tribes, they've actually come across the channel and might seem to be both sides of the channel. So the Belgae, like modern Belgium, those people are closely linked, and there are a couple of peoples along there. There's also the story of the Romans bringing in various mercenaries from around the world to populate Britain. And again, I'm not sure how much of that is correct. It's very hard to show that. But I think that's kind of a cover story, if I may say so, to hide the fact there's all these other nationalities. They've got their own proper migration story and history, and it's recorded, and you can see the names, and you can follow it up and find it out. So let's just say, well, the Romans brought them over, because everything's Roman, yeah? Woo! We love the Romans. Right. Now, the reason I mentioned the Iceni is this is where we come to the name English. So you've just got a small number of Angles, and they're not even the main migration, right? The main migration is down the bottom with the Saxons and stuff. You've got the small Angles, and the idea is the whole country changes its language. All these millions and millions of people start speaking a version of Angles-lish, which became English. Angles-lish, or they wouldn't even use the word ish, the language they spoke. And the people suddenly get named after the Angles. Why? You've got a bunch of people right up in the northeast, sort of Jarrow and those areas, and you've got people like Bede who never left that area, knows nothing about the rest of Britain, why he's seen as the font of all knowledge on Britain, where he never left Blinky in the Jarrow area, is amazing. And so the whole country's renamed itself as Angles, because the story goes some Romans saw a blonde Angle and thought she was so beautiful, they looked like angels. I mean, it's just, think about it, it's nonsense, it's rubbish. Far more likely, Isinglass. And this is why you find a situation where Welsh people can still, so recently, they're ruining the Welsh language in the last, well, particularly the last 40, 50 years. People who used to speak old proper Welsh or South Walian dialect Welsh can speak with Bretons. because they have a similar language link. English people have never been able to speak to Germans. The languages are not directly linked. The idea of them being Germanic was invented in the same way the idea of England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland being Celtic was invented. These are invented ideas that have been pushed on us more recently. Isinglass becomes English. The people and the language. The most dominant people, the most dominant language. And if you studied more into it, and go to the old dictionaries, you'll find all the Welsh words and English words do correlate. There's going to be a difference, and this is going to be a little bit controversial to my Welsh friends. Most English would seem to have been in Britain 1,000 years before the Welsh. The Cymry and the Lost Tribes turning up 500 BC. A lot of these English, old Sicarians and Sumerians and people like that, even maybe the Gwisi, could have been there 1,000 years already. So who are the original English? Who are the original British? And why are they called what they are? So there you go, folks. I hope you enjoyed that. I got through it. Yay! Do I start to look tired now? No, I'm not. I'm fine. Right, what sort of comments we got there, Arnie? I understand a lot of the Cornish. I'm Welsh. Oh, that's interesting. Alan Rees is saying he can converse with Cornish people. Well, that makes sense, wouldn't it? There we are. And Truthvid says English comes from the Angles tribes. Well, there we are. Hopefully I've dealt with that. And I would say it doesn't. I anticipate. Hard to tell, but it would seem to me it certainly wouldn't seem to. Doesn't make any sense, really. Just a small number of people move into the northeast coast. The whole country changes what language it speaks. What? Why? I can't think where it's happened anywhere else, really. The original Gog Magog, yes. Right, I've got to thank you there. Okay, what time is it now, folks? 9:15. Now, I'm really sorry. I'm going to say I have to cut this a bit short because there's a whiteout anyway, but there's a few holes in the clouds, but there is a sunset in about 15 minutes. If you're in London, the sunset tonight is 21:21, or 21:22 today. It was 21:21 on solstice, which I thought was curious, because I think the morning was like 04:44, and the sunset was 21:21. You have to add on about 14 minutes because I'm in Wales. Okay, so I can leave things running if people want to do their thing. No, I think we're going to say goodbye there, I think. And I'm going to do some more short videos in the week. I'm going to leave it on for a bit. Oh, I tell you what I should have done is queue up. Everyone loves Barham's music. It seems to be, though, you'd think the history of the English, or things like this, would be the most contentious issue in our group. No. The most contentious issue is, do you like Barham's music? Most people seem to love it, and I do say to people, you can still follow the comments in the chat and turn the music down. All right, you haven't got to, put your own music on. Because I'm going to stop talking in a minute while I still can. Not while I still can stop, while I still can talk. If that makes sense. Very thought-provoking. Adios. Adios. So that's Arnie Presents. I'm going to say thank you, Arnie. Thank you, everyone. Yes, thank you for watching. I didn't thank anyone at the beginning. I do apologise. I do appreciate people coming along. I love the comments. It all seems a bit weird otherwise, doesn't it? Right, let's see if I can... Anyone up for a bit of Barham's music? Can you talk about Merlin... Emrys, I think. Oh, Merlin Emrys. Sorry, that makes more sense, doesn't it? Yes. I'll make a note for next week. And I apologise to people I made notes for last week, but I have been sleeping on hills in tents last night and late nights and early mornings. That's the one thing about... here we go. It's going to stick now, isn't it? I think I'll just shut things down. It's one thing about the winter solstice. It might be colder up in December, but the days are a lot shorter. See, I've got the situation. Oh, one last thing I want to say as well. I will have this index done on Trojan War, and it's the start of a bigger project. I've realised how useful it is. And thank you to Mrs. C, who's very private. I'm not going to give her full name. But I said about the reprint, you have to include an index. And she's right, of course. Because one of the things you find with these books, like in situations like this now, when people are asking questions, you think, there's 9 books, where is it? I know it's in there somewhere, and I remember most of it, but it'd be nice to be able to just say, Here's an index. Like Merlin was just asked about. Merlin Emrys. Oh, there he is. He's in Arthur, King of Glamorgan and Gwent, and he's on page 128. And I go, oh, there you go, folks. So I'll try and make that ready, available for everyone, okay? Come on, music. You got anything else? All right, good night to all. I think that's Rob. Rob's going to bed, yeah. Yeah, he was there last night as well. I bet he's shattered. I'm sure I slept a little bit. Right. No start, yep. Okay, I think we're the Covenant Man. Covenant Man, yes. Right, okay, well, thank you very much, everyone. And so we'll have to cut it short tonight. Hope you enjoyed it. I've got so many short videos to put up. I'm going to try and get them up during the week, okay? Can you hear any music or anything there on?
No music.
No, so... Oh. Thank you for Arnie as well. Oh, it seems to have jammed anyway, so okay. Is that might be your internet, though?
Yeah, this internet.
Do you want to come and show your face? Say goodbye. With the headphones on. You look cool with the headphones. There he is.
Hello.
Bye-bye from him and...
Bye-bye. Hello.
Bye-bye from me.
Yes.
All right, I'll put the music on and I'll leave the... Have you got a nice picture I could put up? Not really. So not as organised this week. All right, bye all. No star. Until the next time. Come on, Baron. Play me out. Heddwch. Yes, here it comes.
Yeah, this one keeps getting stuck. It's just this one.
It's just your computer, is it? So this is where professional DJs, now the music just comes effortlessly in. Get on with it, Ross. I'm only here for the music. Well, I put some for sale. You can buy a copy on the internet then. On the internet. Yep. It's threatening to play. It's threatening to play. Here it comes. It's on my screen. It says... We're starting on track 5 for some reason. I don't know why. Come on. I want sound. Volume. Come on. Da 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 da. Shall I just sing them? Because I know them all now. What's this? What else we got? Ross, get your PayPal up. Oh, thank you very much. I've got PayPal. Ross at cymroglyphics.com. And we've also got... Oh, my goodness. I meant to mention that. There's also a Patreon account that started. That's not what I was getting excited about. I want to thank all those people who've been donating towards getting Wilson and Blackett a new computer. I think we are just about there. I'd like to get a printer as well, if you want to put some cash in the bucket. Say Patreon or PayPal, Ross at cymroglyphics.com. Send me checks. People even send cash. Got checks. Thank you very much. And our running total is 450, 460, I think, something like that. So we got a decent little notebook computer. And I want to get a printer as well. And now the lockdown restrictions are coming off. I want to take it up there and set it up for them as well with the software running. I've got most of their, almost all their documents and that, I think. So I'm going to put them on for them, onto Word. So they can go on, they can find their work. And they can add to it. And we get them writing more and more. Why isn't the music work? I don't know. It's on my screen. You can't hear it. Great. No idea why. Oh, well, never mind. Thank you very much for that. Right. Did you... Oh, took some pictures at the heart of... oh, yeah, we got loads of video up on... oh, the music's arrived. Hang on. Turn it down a bit. No. I apologise, all those wearing headsets like Arnie almost got his eardrums knocked out. So I turned everything up to max. Hang on! Alright, calm down, Baron. Yes, took loads of video up on the mountain. I also left it running for quite a while, so you can watch the sunrise. Well, at least you can watch the clouds getting brighter. But still, the views are stunning. The views are stunning. Ross got delivered a cheeseburger on the hill last night. I've been stitched up. It was Rob's idea, and thank you to Zoe for actually driving up the mountain with hot cheeseburgers. It was the most pathetic attempt at camping by me, it really was. And then I had all these visions of cooking, like with a little stove, and do myself some beans this morning and all that. No, I had a couple of bits of bread, nothing much in it. And then we went we jumped in Rob's 4x4, went down, and Zoe cooked this a full breakfast. Sausage, eggs, bacon, a lot, you know. Oh dear, yeah. Anyway, people are logging off. I got to go as well. I'll leave you this amazing music, which I know is where you've been putting up with me for the last hour. So you can have the music. Alright, no starry key. Hedu, peace till next time. I'll let it running. I know people like to exchange a few messages. So ciao ciao.
If you only could see just what you mean to me. Me. My heart is pounding at the thought of you. Bam, bam, bam. Your perfume is so fine.
That's last week's caption, but anyway, I gotta put something up so that people know where it ended effectively. Bye bye.
No apology. Scream for new technology. There's a lie in every billion that say go sour. Laggard, what a feeble poem. Stop playing, don't start that again. I'm abused to address ladies, much success that serves love. If you only could conceive just what you mean to me. Me. My heart is pounding at the thought of you. Bam, bam, bam. Your perfume is so fine, and you are always mine. Sly eyes, let me be with you. Sly eyes, come and see me too. There's a lot I'd like to tell you that you'll find interesting. Paradise in the heart of man is better than something less. The first time we met, something strange inside happened. Nothing to equal the emptiness. shop shall truly get tired in due course. Another thing to say is my Jaguar still standing out in the rain on Water Street. So we'll be in paradise in the heart of mine is better than something less. The first time we met, something strange inside happens. Nothing to equal the empty now. So tonight, don't say how much you can. If you think I look okay, see me the next day. Can't you realize I see you through your disguise? Every move you make, I'll be standing here while observing you. Won't you feel okay? Tell her my soul tonight, don't say how much you're kind. If you think I'll look okay, see me the next day. Can't you realize I see you through your disguise? Every move you make, I'm standing here while observing you. Won't you feel okay? Or stuck up and feeling moody, the onus is on you. Whoa, the feeling's just electrifying, making your own way bust. Why can't you understand me? Just look and you see, tell her my soul tonight, don't say how much you're kind. If you think I'll look okay, see me the next day. Can't you realize I see you through your disguise? Every move you make, I'll be standing here while observing you. Won't you feel okay? Like vomit there, avoid it like a plague. devil's eyes, would he give me bad advice? Every move he faced, I would down and a punch of Lucifer. He'd probably make me stay. Yes, yes, yes.
Thanks, Barham. It's playing me out there. It's too cloudy. You can't see the sunset. Gutted. Winter solstice is where it's all at anyway, really. Thank you, folks, who just wind this down. And I am going to bed. Oh. Baron on his Gibson there, by the way. Gibson guitars. Okay, thanks everyone. There's people still online. I can't see any messages though, so I'm going to leave it end. And hopefully little video almost every day this week. So much to share and catch you. Bye.